evening. On behalf of REHOPE, I want to thank our event sponsor, Loretto Foundation, and our VIP sponsor, Stewardship Capital, and all of our generous sponsors who made this evening possible. We also want to express our appreciation to our participants, our staff, our volunteers, donors, friends and family, and our ministry partners. By the way, you guys look great tonight, and we are so grateful that you're here. Our desire is that you'll be informed and you'll be inspired to continue or begin partnering with us in this vital effort to see lives restored from human trafficking. REHOPE is committed to bringing hope to survivors of human trafficking through faith, unconditional love, guidance, and the assurance of long-term care. The stories of lives are truly remarkable. Tonight, we hope you'll get a glimpse of the restorative work that continues to happen because of your generosity. In obedience to God's leading, and because of support of so many of you, we're able to serve even more women and children.
Like I was already crying before we came on stage, hearing about success stories, about people who turned their lives around. So we have some remarkable stories to bring you tonight. I got involved because I think 11 years ago, Roxy, was that right? She knows. I'm sorry, 15 years on the morning show, my memory's the worst, but there was a young woman in a support group where I was a mentor who kept showing up with bruises and markings and had clear, terrible emotional trauma. So I followed her out to the parking lot when she had a panic attack one day. We started to talk, we got to be friends, and I tried to help her find solutions. I mean, that's our job at the station. People call when they don't know who to contact, and our job is to help find resources. And there weren't any. None of the shelters take women in that unique situation. In trying to find her resources, it was just a terrible scramble to find a safe place for her. All the resources she needed to try to put together a whole new life. And so when Roxy called me and said that this was beginning in the Metro, I immediately knew what kind of need was there and asked, sure, how can I be a part of it? So I've been here at the Gala every year.
REHOPE is about the restoration of survivors of human trafficking, women and boys and girls. We have 2 campuses, but we're looking to expand further. There's such a huge need for long-term restorative services for those that have been human trafficked, sex trafficked. So we provide these things free of charge, but it's very expensive to put on. But it's all about saving and changing lives. We take them from the trauma and the difficulty that they've experienced. We give them an opportunity for a new life. All of these people are here, and those of you joining us online are here because we're joining hands together to save and change the lives of those that have been victimized by human trafficking.
And before we get on to business, this is my first time here, so I'm really excited to be involved. But this is such an important cause, and I think that if you're in this room, you either know or you're about to know. I'm lucky enough beyond baseball, and look, we're not talking about a whole lot of this stuff when we get to the baseball stadium, right? We don't know about all of this in our neighborhoods, but if you really are paying attention, you start to learn that it's everywhere.
Last year, we had 411 requests for a bed in our program. Just our REHOPE organization, 411 requests. I thought we were going to be able to build a waiting list for those that we didn't have space for that could then come later when we did have a bed. And Roxy and Donna explained to me why that doesn't work. And the reason is when a survivor asks for help, they are not in a position to wait on that help. They have an urgent need.
I was sexually exploited at the age of 8 by my neighbor. I was molested for 4 years, and that led to my drug and alcohol addiction. I shared it with my parents. They were separated. So I shared it with my mom. She didn't believe me. So I shared it when I went to my dad's for the summer. And my dad's like, well, here, try Coke then. See if that helps you feel better. And my dad's like, he's the drug addict. So I tried coke at the age of 12, marijuana, and alcohol. And by the age of 14, I started crystal meth. I moved out at 15. I became a live-in nanny. So from a young age, I've always dealt with drugs, alcohol as my coping mechanism to numbing everything. I've worked through a lot of the trauma. Back in 2019, I was kidnapped, and that's one thing I haven't quite worked through yet. A friend of mine, and I were getting high, and he got me high off fentanyl, so I blacked out, and he sold me to the gang.
How old were you?
26, 27. They kept me drugged and in a cage. They'd sold me through the basement. The guys would come in and rape me. And one of the head gang members of a different gang, I took care of his kids when he would work, like sell drugs and stuff. I took care of his kids, fed them dinner and everything, and then they'd go home for the night. And he realized I was missing, and he started asking around. And that's when he found out that so-and-so sold me to that gang. And he went, I don't know if he bought me or if he had higher power, but he got me out, took me to his house, and got me sober for a week. Once he got me free, he was like a friend of mine. My mom didn't believe me until she saw the scars on my back. Different scars, like being scratched or burned, cigarette burns.
So here you felt safe?
Yep. I've gotten closure on everything I struggled with. I've been at REHOPE for 2.5 years. REHOPE has meant to me the reunification with my kids and my family. They've built relationships back that I thought would never be there. The most impactful thing here has been sobriety. I think without my sobriety, I wouldn't be able to achieve anything that I've overcame. I've been sober 2.5 years. When I first came here, I was like, there's no way in heck I would ever work with survivors. There's too much drama. It's way too much messiness going on. Too many flashbacks and triggers. And then I started working here, and it slowly has gotten me to where I'm at now. And now I see myself as a case manager working my way up, being able to make this a career. This tiny home means to me that I'll have a safe, secure place to live where I know I can thrive as an individual on my own again. The difference is learning to live independently again. I want to build my way up as a case manager to continue working with survivors, just to show them that you can overcome your past and it does not define you.
Up next, one of the most meaningful things that Restoration House does every year is award the Cry Purple Award. But I'm not the best person to explain to you what it's really about, what it means. If you would please welcome back to the stage Rodney Hammer and Christine McDonald.
I dropped this one year. It's kind of heavy, so I have to warn the award recipients to grab it with two hands. So the Cry Purple Award is to encourage us all in this endeavor. We established this distinguished honor, named the Cry Purple Award, to honor those who've made significant contributions to the fight against human trafficking and the restoration of survivors. It's named after the book Cry Purple, authored by Christine McDonald, a tireless overcomer who not only survived 20 years of trafficking and exploitation, but has risen to inspire legislation, anti-trafficking education, and the mobilization of many. Our 2023 Cry Purple Award winner is a pediatric forensic nurse with multiple degrees, a certified sexual assault nurse examiner, the former head of the SANE unit at Children's Mercy Hospital, the founder of Paradigm Shift Training and Consulting. She has testified before Congress and is a leading voice and practitioner in the anti-trafficking movement and a fierce advocate for minors who have been trafficked. Since 2016, the number of reports made to the National Human Trafficking Hotline from Missouri has increased by 40%. This is the result of training for healthcare workers and hospital staff in discovery, identification, and assistance processes for minors who have been trafficked. Children's Mercy Hospital became the most frequent signaler in the state of Missouri by far. This is primarily due to the work of one person, our 2023 Cry Purple Award winner, Heidi Olson.
I feel really humbled and grateful, and I want to start off by telling you a story. Also, I feel like I'm holding a baby. This thing's heavy. November 2nd, 2022, I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was in a conference. I was listening to new human trafficking research, and I felt this prompting to look at my phone. Obviously, I know this was rude to the speaker, so I'm just ignoring the prompting, but it stayed there. It was persistent. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll glance at my phone. And as I looked at my phone, I saw a headline pop up from a news article, and it was a news release from the Department of Justice. And what it said was, Kansas City man sentenced to 18 years in prison for sex trafficking 4 victims. So I scroll down, and I see the trafficker's name, and I knew exactly what case they were talking about. As the article went on, it said that this case had come about in part because a 14-year-old victim had disclosed to a nurse at Children's Mercy that she was being forced to have sex for money. And my memories rushed back to that day because I was the nurse talking to that vulnerable 14-year-old. As glamorous as it might sound to be a part of a federal trafficking case, it felt anything but that day. I was in the ER for 15 hours that day working. So many things went wrong that it's honestly a miracle there was any semblance of justice to this case. After this kid had been misidentified by several staff members, she of course denied that she was being trafficked, as is very normal with the kids that we see. She basically got written off by everybody else, and nobody thought she was being trafficked, and so nobody was going to call the forensic nurse in to see her. Thankfully, a courageous nurse, instead of labeling her as a bad kid, said, hey, something seems off. I'm just going to call Heidi and make sure she doesn't need to come in. I'm so thankful she called me in because as I assessed this 14-year-old, she was positive for methamphetamine. She had several sexually transmitted infections, and she had been on the run for several weeks without her parents knowing where she was or who she was with. So as soon as I started talking to this 14-year-old, the puzzle pieces just started to fit together. And eventually I built rapport, I asked the right questions, and she disclosed to me that she was in fact being trafficked. After this disclosure, I collected her phone as evidence. She ended up being discharged to a drug detox facility, and I gave Homeland Security her phone. Eventually, Homeland Security located her trafficker, and he was arrested. And as he was being arrested, the police told me that buyers were calling this trafficker multiple times because they wanted to have sex with 2 juveniles at once. This 14-year-old was being starved, she was given drugs, and she was forced to stay in a dingy apartment in Kansas City. And then, nothing. 4 years went by and I didn't hear anything. My patient became an adult. I never got subpoenaed. I checked the news over and over, and I never saw anything about this case until I was sitting in that conference, and I saw the headline. This trafficker got 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He had finally taken a plea deal, which was great. He deserves much longer, but he had taken a plea deal, and I needed that. I needed hope. Anyone working in the anti-trafficking movement knows that we need these moments of hope because the reality is that most scenarios don't look like this. Most of the times the kids that we encounter and identify as trafficking victims end up in dangerous situations again and again. No one gets arrested and the cycle of trauma continues. This work is hard, and to be honest, there's times when I wanted to quit. There's times when I felt burned out beyond belief, and I wanted to go back to the naive days of not knowing this level of depravity and darkness exists. There's so much trauma and evil that exists when people are dehumanized and treated like objects. And unfortunately, there's a lot of resistance to changing the status quos in our systems. I've been told no or not now more times than I can count from leaders who should be spearheading this work in medical spaces. And it's those times where I desperately need hope. A ray of light, an encouraging word, a yes, finding out a survivor is doing well, or that a trafficker is in prison, or that a staff member spoke up when something seemed off. Just enough hope to keep moving forward. Over the last few years at Children's Mercy, we have done groundbreaking and cutting-edge work in identifying kids who are being trafficked. We have identified hundreds and hundreds of kids in our community. We treat them with dignity and respect. We understand they've been deeply traumatized and groomed, and there are very few hospitals doing anything remotely like this. So in May of 2022, I jumped headfirst into the deep end and decided to start my own business because I wanted to continue to expand this work around the globe. But this does not happen in a vacuum. There are so many people that I need to thank who worked in tandem with me. So to my family, especially to my sister who is here with me, thank you for watching me present more times than any human should ever have to watch another person present, for editing my articles, for listening to my highs and lows, and for having my back. To my fellow saints, some of you who are here tonight, you're my heroes. You truly do one of the hardest jobs in the world. Thank you for encouraging me, validating me, and for believing in me. And to my friends, thank you for letting me be vulnerable, for your validation, and for encouraging my heart. To all the REHOPE staff and to the board, especially Rodney, Rick, Jason, Roxy, thank you so much for encouraging me to start my own business and for trudging along with me over this last year. To all of the incredible anti-trafficking heroes in the room, Russ, Stan, Allison, thank you for teaching me everything about starting a business, for your constant encouragement, and for making me laugh when we experience truly crazy things together. And to Brandon, my partner, more than anyone, you've seen the highs and lows over the last few years. You've seen me jump up and down when people have given me a chance, and you've seen me cry in my office when I'm feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. Thanks for buying me a whiteboard a year ago to write down ideas on. Thanks for taking care of my dogs when I've traveled, just like last week. Thank you for constantly telling me you're proud of me. I am very grateful for your support. And to the survivors in the room, including Christine, I know that we have failed you. I know healthcare workers have re-traumatized, not believed you, and caused more harm than good. I know that you often are not given a place or a voice to make changes in healthcare settings because you never had the opportunity to go to school or have a million credentials or an MD behind your name. I know that many times you were labeled promiscuous, an addict, or worse by nurses and doctors who failed to see your exploitation. And for that, I want to apologize for all of the harm that you experienced in a place that was meant to heal. I'm inspired by your resiliency and your courage. Thank you for teaching me. I'm sure there's many more people I'm forgetting to thank, but to each person who's intersected with me over the last year, thank you for cheering me on. In doing this work for the better part of the last decade, there's a couple trends that I feel like I need to say out loud being a frontline worker. Almost every case of sex trafficking that's happening in Kansas City has a tie to childhood sexual abuse. If we want to end trafficking, we have to address the fact that so many of our kids have been sexually abused first. And if we want to protect our kids, we have to stop giving them smartphones before puberty with no protective measures in place. Because so many of the kids that I see that are preyed on and groomed and trafficked meet their traffickers through social media. We also know that pornography has a symbiotic relationship with sex trafficking. And if we want to end trafficking, we have to confront the epidemic of porn use in our country that's influencing sex buyers and traffickers. We have to change our paradigms. So here is what I want to leave you with. I'm not some fairy tale creature with a magic wand who's doing something impossible. I'm making a difference with the skill set I have been given. You can do the same thing. It won't look the same as my work. It's not easy, and most of the time it's thankless, but you have no idea the reach of your impact. You might be told no, you might not always get it right, but you absolutely have a role to play. I do believe that we're slowly making forward progress in combating this monstrous battle. We need hope. We need wins. We need reminders that we're not alone in this fight. So I'm grateful for tonight. I'm humbled to be winning this award, and I'm thankful for each one of you who continues to do this work even when it goes unseen. Thank you.
There are a million great events in every city, obviously, so we have to pick and choose. And I think for me, just having the voice that I have, coming into people's living rooms as a baseball broadcaster 6 months a year, gives me some of that platform, that chance to be able to get out there and shed some light and share the importance of such a critical cause here in this community and really everywhere. I'm lucky enough, and I say lucky just because I've been exposed to something that most people don't see right in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities. But beyond my baseball job, I have a podcast that runs twice a week, talking about leadership and culture, but also really important causes. And I ended up sort of getting pulled into this at one point, just the storytelling, the dramatic storytelling of so many survivors, and understood that I could be part of that storytelling. And so I think the closer you get to it, you start to realize as you meet people that are involved in this, either survivors or allies and those that are trying to stop this, is you start to see that this is something that is going on everywhere and most of us don't know. So as soon as I found that out and I started to learn, oh my gosh, this is right here and it's serious, I don't know how you couldn't want to be involved.
We are, with your help, expanding beds, services, staff, programming. And our commitment with your help is, if there is a survivor that musters the courage, that has this sliver of hope and time, and we know from learning from our survivor friends that when they take that step, they need it right then. And we don't have the luxury of waiting lists. They don't have a safe place to go and hang out and support themselves while they wait on a bed in a program. And our staff does an amazing job of referring and connecting and trying to get them help. But we are committed, with your help, with the Lord's help, to providing as many safe homes that are needed in our country. We need to urgently seek out those that are exploited and enslaved. If it was our child, if it was your child, would you not move heaven and earth to find them, to help them, to see what they needed, to bring them home? If it was our sister or our brother or our family member, we would move heaven and earth to recover them. So our commitment is we will do the same, because each trafficked person, each survivor is our family. They are all made in the image of God and of equal value.
So the importance of what we're doing is we get to make an impact. We truly get to see lives changed. We get to see young ladies that are rescued off the streets. We get to see them come in, receive the therapy, the help that they need in order for them to feel safe, in order for them to be able to move back with their own families, or we get to help find them families in the community.
You both have lived it every day in some form or another. It's real. It is here in every one of our neighborhoods. And I'm just wondering, Mary, your perspective on all of this, and how much things are hopefully changing for the better, but how much work we have to do.
I think bringing more awareness and understanding that that it goes around, happens every day, that it's not just people in third world countries, but it's right in our backyard. That, it's so easy, it's in their music. People that, like, even example, Snoop Dogg, he was a pimp and his own wife was his bottom. It's like normal, but it's not. And I think it's been going on for so long, and now it's finally shedding light on it.
And to be able to talk about it, it's such a scary thing. And especially, I've talked to so many survivors that still don't know what's out there. You still have to be careful. You've been through so much. But how are you doing now? How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Graduated from REHOPE.
Wow.
Yes. January 24th made my 3 years. I'm waiting to go into a tiny home. I turned down an apartment because of being 10 years of trafficked. I feel like I'm not ready. I have a lot of trauma and stuff to work through. And I think going into a tiny home with my daughter would be the best thing, because I came to restoration pregnant. And I was lucky that they even let me in. There's no resources to girls that get pregnant by their traffickers. And traffickers are out here getting girls pregnant so they can keep them stuck. I've lost one child from my trafficker signing the birth certificate and holding her against me to where I had to go make out a certain amount to even be able to see my kid. And I ended up leaving, and she ended up getting to the system, and I lost her. And I'm hoping now to got lawyers out in California, because that's where I was trafficked, that can open up this case so I can be able to get back with her. And I just got news about that, so I'm really excited.
Wow. I want to ask Heather, but first, Chuck, just your perspectives on this, because you both are living in this world in a way of helping others every single day. And I don't know about you both, but hearing a survivor's story is never a normal thing. You know what I mean? Like, we could be desensitized to so much in this world, but to me, I could listen to you, Mary, I could listen to my friend Megan, I could listen to Christine over and over again. One, just knowing the courage. I'm wondering your perspective on this, Chuck, and you know what it feels like to hear Mary be able to share some of her success.
It's what we do it for. It's why we do it every day. You know, it's the success stories when we see somebody survive, and not just survive, but she's on fire. I mean, she's what we can all look at and say, this is why we do what we do. You know, we have the opportunity to work with minors. And you talk about these young lives, kids as young as 9 years old, some from foreign countries. Why do we do what we do? Look at Mary. You know, we want to stop this before it gets to her age. We want to help these young ladies, these young boys, recover now and get on the road and have those tiny successes.
I wanted to ask your opinion on this as well, Heather, because you shared so beautifully your experience and getting that win, right? I mean, I think we all need wins, but when you're dealing with so much pain and what I've got to imagine must feel at times so hopeless, to be able to see that hope, that REHOPE, right? To be able to hear Mary, to be able to see those success stories, what that does, not just for you internally, but for you to be able to go out there and share those victories when you're out there presenting.
Yeah, it's a great question. It feels like an honor when someone is willing to share their story and to be able to sit with victims, whether they're in an ER or they've walked through their healing journey or they're on their journey. It's always an honor to be able to hear what they've experienced. And so I think for me, anytime I'm talking to a kid that's been traumatized and they're sharing with me, I feel lucky to be a safe space. And I think for me, that feels inspiring to want to go on and train other people to be able to understand the trauma they've experienced and what our reaction should be to that.
I want to get a final thought from everybody. We got a few more minutes, and then we'll move it along. So I know we're getting a little bit later, but Chuck, just moving forward here too, as REHOPE grows, as the facilities grow and everything, where are things moving?
Well, there's still not enough beds. Yeah. There's still not enough beds. We've learned that several times tonight. Just this year, we're introducing into boys. Nobody in this room would ever imagine that boys are being trafficked. Boys never get trafficked, but that's a lie. Boys don't talk about it. It is happening to boys. And so just this year, we're going to make ourselves available to have boys come in, because the more we talk about it, all it takes is for one boy to hear that there's a safe place for it. Because once we start talking about it, then all of a sudden there is help. And somehow nurses at the hospital, you know, the work that Heidi's doing, somehow we can reach that child and we can bring them in to start having them again, those tiny successes. But we've got to get the word out. We've got to get it across not only our country, but across the world, that this is unacceptable and that we're taking a stand on the front lines to stop it there.
All right. I want to get one final thought, because again, I mentioned, I think when I came up on the stage with Lauren before, that this is a room full of people, and if you've been here in the past, which is more than I have been, but you know some of the stories, that this isn't as shocking to you as it may be to many of our neighbors and friends and relatives, even if we haven't quite lived in the world of Chuck, of Heidi, of Mary. But you know, we all have a responsibility to share this, tell other people, share it with your friends, that it's going on across the street, it's going on down the street. It is, and you could see it if you start paying attention to some of the signs, just the little things, the massage parlors, the this and that, the internet stuff. I mean, it could be going on next door. You don't really know. So I just want to go around and talk to all of you. I'm going to give Mary the last word, but Heidi, what does go on from the perspective of someone that was in there on an everyday basis as a nurse? I don't think people understand this isn't just an every now and then type of thing. The magnitude of what is going on behind the scenes. Can you give us a better understanding?
Yeah, so at Children's Mercy, the sexual assault nurse examiner started screening every adolescent sexual assault patient coming into our ER for trafficking. So we didn't know if these kids were being trafficked or not. We were just asking the right questions. And what we found in 2021 is that we had 105 positive screens, meaning 105 kids either had extremely high-risk behaviors associated with trafficking or we knew they were being trafficked. And last year it was 98. And so I think that's important to know that these are just kids just being screened by a tiny portion of nurses in one hospital. This is not every kid coming through Children's Mercy by any means. If we screened every kid coming through every hospital, that number would skyrocket. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg that we're seeing, and it's a ton of kids that we truly do not have good resources for. So I think the scope of a problem is huge, but it's much more subtle. So I think, again, people are thinking, oh, it's a kid who's getting abducted and sold into a ring. It's not that. It's kids who are talking to traffickers and predators online that are grooming them and luring them. So I think it's happening. It just doesn't always look like what we envision.
The movies do what the movies do, right? I mean, minus the documentaries, it's always the van, you know, and the abduction. Not that that doesn't happen too, but it's the rest of it. I mean, I don't know if Lee Gibson's here tonight, but I know I was over on Independence Avenue with him a while back, and I was standing outside. It was a little bit later in the day. The sun was kind of coming down, and he could see a woman kind of down the street and across the street walking. And he said, I don't think I've seen her before. She's new. I said, so you know she's new because you haven't seen her? He said, it's not just that. And the man was walking behind her pretty close. It was the pimp. And he said they probably lured her in, maybe from a strip club, something like that, and from another state. Hey, we can pay you more money here. The fact that he was walking so close behind means that she hadn't been all that drugged yet. And he said, come back in a week, and he'll be walking further behind because she won't know where she is. She'll look more disheveled. This is happening right on our streets. Chuck, you have your perspective of seeing people come in. I'm just wondering what you could share with this audience about how much more prevalent and real this is than maybe we understand.
I don't even think we fully understand how prevalent it really truly is, because I think it's that big.
Even bigger than what we realize.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget, I had a neighbor that once told me, he said, well, that doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen in my neighborhood. They said, we don't want these girls coming over from St. Louis. And I just shook my head. I said, I don't know what you're thinking. It's happening right here in your backyard. You know, one of the things I was thinking about, Heidi, and that is our schools. These kids are in our schools, our school resource officers, our teachers, you know, our school counselors. We all need to be prepared to look for these things, because our teachers are seeing these kids and they're walking right in front of them, or they're missing class, or they're missing homework. Whatever it may be, we need to all be aware and all be up there and talking, and it's okay to ask the question, are you okay?
I'm going to give the final word to the truest hero up here, and that's Mary, because you've survived. You're a survivor, and you just told us about some of the future here now, what you're working towards. What do you want people to know, or what should they know, in terms of just how they can help, what they can look for? I've got to imagine that when you are being trafficked, there has to be something in your head that says, if someone would just do this, and I know this is not easy, what do people need to know? How can they better help or be more aware, or just what can they be looking for?
One, like with a girl with her head down, multiple girls together with the pimp, branding tattoos all the way to the crown with the initial on it. I mean, in the car, like with one guy driving and multiple girls in lingerie and stuff, like that's signs right there.
Social services is so big. I honestly don't know where to start, but it is broken. There are segments of social services and mental health that need to be tweaked. We need to try and fix some of these things because children are the future. And those are the kids and the people that we need to save. We need to give them hope. We need to give them life. And I think I heard it earlier that, hope, if you don't have hope, you really don't have anything.
This is why we rebranded to REHOPE in part. It's unique and concise. It's missionally aligned, the name, with our purpose, and to restore survivors of human trafficking and to give hope for a future. And it is without a geographical reference. Martin Luther said, everything that is done in this world is done by hope. And Hebrews teaches us that we have this hope as an anchor for the soul. And so this is integral to what we do and why we do it. REHOPE, Reimagine the Possible, is a book I'm writing with contributions from survivors of sex trafficking. I have to confess to you, I'm absolutely terrified of the prospect of putting a book before you, knowing that it's not like a speech that you can forget next week. Matthias, it's not like a sermon that nobody can quote next year. It's there for everybody to pick apart from now to forevermore. And so I am terrified of doing it. But we believe that putting forward the book REHOPE, Reimagine the Possible, stories of survivors with their approval and permission will help others see that they too can rehope their life, that they can share the story of REHOPE and our vision to expose human trafficking for what it is and to mobilize us all to action. So my prayer is that it will do so. You can pre-order copies today by making a suggested donation of $20 per copy designated for the book project. There's a QR code out where you checked in. Please welcome the producer of Knock, the owner of Shaco Records, the president-to-be of Bell Tower Pictures, the founding partner of Good All Over Productions, and producer of the 3-time Emmy-nominated PBS television show, The Good Road. Please welcome Craig Martin.
Thanks, Rodney. Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, Craig, I understand you have an announcement that you could share with the group tonight about Knock.
Yeah, so last year you heard me talk about a docuseries, and we're still very invested in that. The exciting shift and change is that we're going to start with a film that will be distributed in theaters across the United States. So we're working with an organization that I had 2 films produced, and that was distributed in about a little over 800 theaters. So we'll see what happens with this.
So, Christine, you and Anita, you guys inspired us. We're going to go film worthy with you, and we're excited that Craig could announce tonight that Fathom Pictures will distribute it nationwide later this year. The board of directors of REHOPE established a new distinguished prize to be bestowed annually upon an organization. Cry Purple is for an individual. This award is for an organization. The prize is a hand-sculpted glass angel by award-winning artist Hasna Saul, a renowned anti-human trafficking arts advocate. The inaugural prize goes to a group who were early supporters since 2000 of reaching out to and healing survivors of sex trafficking and who are now catalysts of systemic change in the region through holistic counter-human trafficking. The Begida Angel is hereby established in honor of and bestowed upon the Sisters of Charity, Leavenworth, Kansas.
Thank you so much. It's truly a privilege and an honor to be the inaugural recipient of this award. Since 1858, we as Sisters of Charity have simply tried to offer every loving service in our power to meet the critical needs of God's people. And those needs continue to change and evolve, and one of the needs we know is the dehumanization of people through exploitation, slavery, and human trafficking. We have simply tried to do our part, and we know that no one person or organization can or should do this alone. And so working with REHOPE, being your partner, knowing that you as an asset are a part of this community where the needs are great is truly our blessing, our honor, and we're just grateful to be in this with you together. Thank you.
I would just like to say that this has been a true honor, and the people that we have met in becoming acquainted with all of you came through to us by Dr. Morris, who's on your board, and he introduced us to Rodney, and we're so happy to know you and happy to see the love and the giving that you possess, that you share so well with compassion and love for those who are in need.
I don't know about you, but if you tithe throughout the year, maybe this is an opportunity to make this part of something that you include, or special gifts later. Just remember that it's not just once a year that they can use those funds. There's always a need. We always want to add to the support services and to the beds, and when that call comes, we got to be there.
Let's be there for those calls. Let's be there for those young women, girls, boys, young men, whoever it is that is being trafficked. Let's make more survivors out there, first and foremost. That is a long-term goal. That's one that can start tomorrow. The short-term goal, I'll wrap it up with this. I know baseball is, I think I go to spring training in 23 days, which is exciting. But in the near term, as Andy Reid would say, how about those? Good night, everybody.